Good Friday evening, everyone. Welcome to Cherries Red Army. I'm Kirk. There's no better way to start a football weekend than with a match preview as we take on Preston at Deepdale tomorrow in the Championship. And we've got guests ready backstage, ready to come in and debate this fixture in more detail. And of course, you can get involved in the next hour. You have that interactive chat. Make sure you put whatever you're feeling about this game. We will show some on the screen, including those score predictions later on. However, we are looking to get 850 subscribers and we are 831. So thank you for all your support. Keep going and subscribe if you are new to the channel. I also just want to point out as well that we are very, very happy and appreciative of all the donations we've had recently towards the channel. We've had some from John, Jean, Aaron's also got involved, a great contributor of the channel, and of course our channel supporter members. And you know that you can support the channel, help us in our growth at buymeacoffee.com/Cherries Red Army. And of course, for absolutely nothing, you can smash that like button. So please do that at some point in the video. Tell us who's joining us then, where you're joining us from, get involved. It is Bournemouth versus Preston in the Championship. Let's talk about it.
Towards this right-hand side, picked up by Barkhazen, level the edge of the penalty, whipped in towards the penalty spot and smashed into the back of the net. A fantastic finish from Ben Whiteman. And it comes towards the edge of the penalty, looking for Solanke, who turns his man on this occasion. Pearson wants it laid off. Instead it goes for Stacey, who wound up for a shot and then pulled out at the last minute, just outside the penalty area. Stacey still has it, trying to go around the outside here. Jack Stacey, low cross in. It runs for Phil Billing, who goes past one and finds the ball. The equaliser from Phil Billing. His sixth league goal of the season. 13 minutes left. We'll get Willow, the tactician, to keep an eye on that. But Preston move forward, coming forward, comes back to the penalty spot. McCann! Preston back in front here on the counter-attack. Ali McCann on his first goal of the season.
And we have our guest joining us this evening. Let's go round the room, shall we? And it's John Spark. First of all, John, did you get a ticket?
I did, in the end, yes. I'll be joining however many few hundred that make it up all the way up to Preston tomorrow, so looking forward to that.
And Steve Hensman, he's going tomorrow. He wants to wrap this show up as soon as possible, but he's going to get involved and discuss this game. He's got a long trip up north. Steve, how you doing?
Yeah, not too bad. Yeah, I've got to get me early night. I need my beauty sleep at my age.
Brilliant. And a special guest this evening. We've had him on before. This is his second attempt because he was meant to be on a few weeks ago, but we did have connection issues, but we've sorted them out. We've got former AFC Bournemouth youth team manager, former League Two manager, Ross Embleton. How are you?
Yeah, I'm good, thank you. All the better for the laptop working, and when the earphones didn't quite work when we first logged on, Kirk, I was panicking, but it's good to be back on again, and thanks for having me.
The most important thing is that we've got you on. And who else is joining us in the chat? Our supporters this evening, we've got Stephen Dyer. Come on, up the cherries. Chris Hubble, Aaron Kay, thank you for your joining our supporter members today. Thank you for that, Aaron. Really appreciate it. And a Cherries Red Army supporter member, Mark Singleton, Mark Cole, JK up the cherries, Cameron Meach. And we've got Robin joining us as well. Safe trip tomorrow. Heather, Ron the Pug, and Sammy Nell, who will be giving us a score prediction later on, like the rest of you. And we'll come straight to you first, Ross. We are going to talk about Preston versus Bournemouth. But first of all, I'd like to know your thoughts on AFC Bournemouth season so far. Currently second, but very much the mixed bag from our point of view. But as you're looking out from a little bit of an outsider, although you love the town, how have you seen it?
Yeah, I think it is that, isn't it? And I think it's really surreal that everybody seems to have such a very similar opinion on the form and the way the season's gone so far, but to be in such a positive position in the league, I think the if you sort of listen to people's opinions and you break down what I listen to and what I hear from people on a regular basis. If you moved away the position in the league, I think you'd believe that the club was in a lot more of a difficult or different position to it actually is. But I think the fact that they came out the traps in the manner that they did so quickly obviously set a great standard to the season. And then it is, I suppose, highly unlikely that you're going to be able to maintain or sustain that the whole way throughout a season. So whether it's because teams got to grips and probably paid Bournemouth a lot more respect, I suppose, led to making it harder. I know how that can feel, that once you hit the ground running, you become the team to beat, or sometimes actually the team to stop. And it seemed or appeared, again, certainly from being a little bit more distant, as you say, that they really found it hard to overcome that for a while. But hopefully the tide has turned. I'm sure everyone was pleased to see Boreham Wood get knocked out last night, but it looks as if since that moment of horror has come and gone, that hopefully the form has started to turn, and you can look forward now to a strong finish and get to the promised land.
And trying to hit the ground running was what we tried to achieve last week, John. Didn't quite happen. Took us about 83 minutes, but it was that last championship game. Eventually, it was a 2-1 win versus Stoke City. But I did say after the game that there doesn't seem to be anything in the middle. It's either one way or another. Scott Parker's almost God, or he's almost the worst manager we could possibly have. And if we hadn't got that equaliser or turned the game around, that atmosphere inside Dean Court would have been completely different to what it was after 93 minutes and that victory.
Yeah, but I mean, you could hear it in the ground before the first goal was scored as well. I mean, the amount of times that particularly things which I think a lot of Bournemouth fans suffered through last season, or possibly the season before, was a number of short corners or free kicks that weren't played forwards. There were a number of boos when we just didn't seem to be going all out attack mode. Certainly in the second half when we were still 1-0 down. And there is a level of expectation that's grown within the fan base now not only because of the great start, as Ross mentioned, we started off brilliantly with a fantastic unbeaten record and a lot of wins, a lot of clean sheets, but then when things weren't quite going our way, we then spent, for the championship, a lot of money on a number of new signings. And there's now a lot of pressure on Parker. The good thing about that is that, certainly from interviews afterwards, is that the team seems relatively confident in their ability. They feel confident in Parker that, yes, okay, we didn't get a goal for the first 80-odd minutes of that game, but they were confident that it would turn itself around. And it did. And regardless of what the atmosphere is like in the stadium, regardless of what the fan base thinks, if they keep pulling out victories, it's not really going to matter in the end.
And Steve, we did turn it around. Ironic, Jamal Lowe started from the start of the game, but we've always said that he's not great starting from matches based on previous experiences. He's very good at impacting off the bench. But when he did sort of end up in a sort of middle position inside the box alongside Dom Solanke, he ended up being rewarded from a Dom Solanke fluff, and he got the winner.
Yeah, I think when you say he hasn't been as effective from the start, I think that's because when he's played from the start, he's been out wide. But when he's been in central positions, like you just said there, he gets in and around Dom, and he gives him enough. It's someone to pick up them pieces when it doesn't quite fall for Dom, and that's exactly what he did on Saturday. It was one hell of a fluff from Dom. He won't look back at that with any great pride, but. Jamal Lowe was there on Johnny on the spot to put it in, and that's where I think he's most effective. He certainly, for me, just gets a little bit. I find him getting a little bit lost in the game when he's out wide. I don't think he just goes missing for long periods. I find it's much more potent when we see him down the middle. So I mean, you're right. But picking up what John said, I think the problem with the crowd on Saturday was the fact that we were down to 10. They were down to 10 men. I think had it been 11 against 11, it may not have been as bad. But the fact that we were doing that poorly against a team with 10 men on the pitch, that may have had added an extra bit of needle to some of the fans out there. But yeah, we won the game, and it's all probably part of Parker's massive dramatic sort of, it's like almost like a soap opera, isn't it? What's going to happen next for Bournemouth?
I know you don't get to enough games, Ross. I know you're always keen to get down to Dean Court when you can and follow the Cherries. But when we were in the stadium last week, I did almost say that we've not had enough performances on the front foot and been really penetrative and got forwards and really pinned teams back for long enough. But it felt like we were okay for about 10, 12 minutes. And then it was like a light switch. And it almost came from the crowd being frustrated through passes backwards and forwards, goalkeeper trying to play it out short but not really opening any triangles or going anywhere. And once the crowd got frustrated, the team performance just dropped off a cliff. Now, from a managing point of view, and you've managed football teams in League Two, how much of an influence and detriment can a crowd have when it sort of gets frustrated?
Remind me to come back to an experience I had on Tuesday night, just in case I go off on a tangent and I forget to relate to it, because it is very important. I think, to answer your question outright from a managerial perspective, is the players will feel that, and it's normal. It's normal for you guys to get frustrated, for me to get frustrated when I'm watching my team or I'm coaching, but the players will feel that, and there will be that anxiety. There will be. I alluded to it with the first question that you asked me. There will be now, and it's probably not something that the club are drastically used to. Everyone will be coming to Dean Court to stop Bournemouth from winning. Not really interested with coming to go and really create chances and try to score. So it gives you a different challenge to overcome. Now, you said about the expectation and the money that's spent. You like to think that the players have been brought in that are going to help break opposition's teams down, but a lot of the time they're not going to be able to, or not going to want to give you the spaces, and not going to come out to leave themselves vulnerable for Bournemouth to really, really hurt teams. So that frustration is going to build throughout the rest of the season. And I can think back to when the year that we won the National League. We were the big club in the National League, but we were Little Leyton Orient in terms of how everybody saw it, in terms of, the fans and the people that have been associated with the club. We'd always been the little club. And I think if you know where I'm coming from when I say it, but it's an expectation and a level that that's not always going to have been hit with the club. Even when we're in the Premier League, it would have been sometimes the other way round, in terms of being able to make it difficult home and away for oppositions to break you down. So I think it's going to be tough over the next little while, because everyone's nervous, everyone's edgy, everyone wants you to get that first goal and then the second goal so you can play with comfort. But the emotions and the edginess will be exactly the same for the staff and the players as it will be for the supporters. And it's about the best way that everyone can channel that and stick together and try and create the positivity. And I just mentioned there about the experience on Tuesday night. I went to watch Orient at QPR, at Colchester on Tuesday night, and I sat in the away end. And it was the first time I'd done that for years. And I actually could sense the anxieties from people, whether it was a chance, whether it was a goal, whether it was a goal for, whether it was a goal against. And the emotions that swing around in the away end as fans are no different for Scott Parker and his staff and for the players. Obviously, they're a hell of a lot more trained in trying to deal with that emotion and play their way through it. But I think it's a common phrase and cliche that's used in football about sticking together and all those things that go with it. But I think it is a really important one, that people try to maintain that upbeat feel and positivity, because they're really going to need you between now and the end of season, certainly in those home games.
Together, anything is possible. That's the motto as well. Someone who's not feeling very nervous this season, even when he's meant to be under pressure for his position, John, and that's Mark Travers. I think he's picked up 4 man of the matches. He's now just absolutely bagged player of the month comfortably in the Twitter polls. We talked about him. He's so impressive. And again, he gave us a really good chance to get that victory against Stoke last weekend. And he's not budging. He's not going to give up that place lightly, is he?
No, not at all. And he really didn't have all that much to do for the majority of the game. I mean, he had no chance with the goal. It was a fantastic strike. But There was the deflected shot off Zamora that sort of was probably hitting the crossbar post joint that he still managed to tip over just to make sure it didn't go in. And then 94th minute or whatever it was, right at the end, Lloyd Kelly wrestling with their striker, and he has to produce another save there. And I totally agree with Sammy. I mean, he's been by a mile our player of the season. I do feel as though the fact that he's been getting so many awards and the fact that he's doing so well, there's a lot of people that see that as quite the negative, to sort of say, oh, if your goalkeeper's playing well, that just shows how bad your defence is. And I do think that's a really easy comment to make when, it's every goalkeeper has to make saves. It doesn't matter how good you think your team is. Ederson still has to make saves for City. Alisson still has to make saves for Liverpool. You cannot completely shut out your opposition. And you need a great goalkeeper to get yourself into the position that we're in. And without Mark Travers performing the way he has, there's no doubt we would not be in the automatics at the moment. He's been absolutely key to how good we've been this season.
And another player we're going to need tomorrow, Steve. And as much as the fans say comfortably Mark Travers is player of the season, I am in that sort of bracket as well at the moment. There's another player that's going to throw his name into the hat at the end of the season, and that is Dom Solanke. 20 league goals he notched with that equaliser versus Stoke City last weekend. And that's a real milestone for him in his career. I think he's really stepped up after becoming the main man when Callum Wilson moved to Newcastle. He's adding goals from all areas of his game. 5 headers, only 1 last season. He's having more shots per game. He's even taking penalties. Okay, 1 at Blackpool wasn't great. But really, if we were to lose him, we may be in a little bit of trouble.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you've got an argument to say, whereas Travers has kept him out one end and kept the scores, people from scoring, he's been the guy that's, scoring all the goals the other end. And without either of them, we wouldn't be in the position we find ourselves currently. So massive props to Dom, because he has come on leaps and bounds this season. There's always been a player in there. Obviously, you don't graduate through Chelsea's academy, go on to the likes of Liverpool. If there's not a player in there, I mean, he's a big player for the England youth setup as well. So there's always been that player there. It's obviously it's never really happened for him at Premier League level. He's never really broken through into the first team consistently. So I think it just came down to his confidence and could he actually do it? And then when he's found himself, I mean, I watched a show the other day that you and Jerron did about Dom, and I completely agree. He needed that chance to become the main man, and when he did become the main man, he didn't sit in anyone's shadow who come before him. He grasped it, and he had 15 goals last season, which isn't a bad return really for his first sort of main season as the main striker. And then he's just built on that this season massively. And like you said, he's getting goals from all over. I know he's got the penalties now, but we've only had 2 or 3 of those. But he's scoring, and his finishing. Dan said it quite nice. He said his finishing has become very, very nice nowadays. He's finding those corners consistently. He's tucking the ball away nicely. Whereas I felt previous seasons he was kind of snatching at his chances a little bit, almost trying to sort of just like, if I hit this hard enough, it'll go in. And it's a testament to whoever's been coaching him. Maybe it's a bit of Big Fletch in there who's been telling him how to tuck balls away. But yeah, I know he's certainly a massive part of where we are now. And just another thing, I just wanted to pick up on what we're talking about with Travers, but I think he needs massive props as well, because last season when he lost the shirt after the first game, I mean, to come back and be how good he is now, I think that's another sort of massive reward for him, because he could have fallen off a cliff a little bit confidence wise. But he hasn't. He's come back. He's waited his time behind Begovic, and now he's got his chance. And what performance he's put in this season, consistently as well.
Ross, is it a bit strange that you see Freddie Woodman's come in from Newcastle? And again, ironic that we were trying to get Freddie Woodman at the start of the season, but because of the issues through COVID and injuries that Newcastle were having, that deal sort of went into the water and enabled Travers to have another shot when Begovic went to Everton. But it did seem a bit strange that we still went for Woodman in January when Travers was the best goalkeeper at the time in the Championship. And Freddie Woodman's gone from sitting on the bench at Newcastle to sitting on the bench at Bournemouth.
Yeah, and it would be very interesting to look behind the scenes and wonder what the agreement was with Newcastle with regards to taking him, because a lot of the time when you're taking a young player on loan from a club higher up, normally the plan is that they're coming in to get the experience of being out on the pitch and getting minutes in the team. So it'd be really interesting to know what that agreement was between the two clubs or the managers before he was brought in. I think from looking at it like a signing like that, they're going to want to be prepared, I think. So even when it came back around again, the opportunity to have had him, talking about losing the possibility of losing Solanke, but the fact that if you lost Travers at that moment, any moment in time between now and the end of the season, to have what the staff and the people at the club would feel is a ready-made replacement is really, really important. So that would probably also be at the forefront of their mind, is that you've got a lad there, albeit who hasn't had an incredible amount of experience out on the pitch just yet. He might, they'll feel that he's capable and at the level to take his place should he need to. Hopefully, like Solanke, they won't have to get to that point.
Right, John, let's touch a little bit on the opposition tomorrow then at Deepdale, and that's Preston. A tricky tie this could be, because almost a little bogey team for Bournemouth. Not many do we have currently in our history, but they are currently 12, 47 points, a mixed bag of form, draw, win, lose, draw, pretty split across the board. I mean, they win as many roughly at home as they do away. It was a 1-1 draw versus Coventry, but interestingly, an awful lot of draws recently at home, and I'm sure they'll probably snap another draw tomorrow and take it if it was offered.
Yeah, I mean, out of their last 12, they've won 3 and lost 2. So that means they've been drawing over half of their games recently. I certainly wouldn't be surprised if there's another draw on tomorrow. Preston is somewhat of a bogey team for us. I mean, we've won 1 out of the last 6. You got it further back, and we've got a decent record. But certainly recently, it's not been all that great against Preston. They were the first team to beat us this season with a 2. It was the first team, wasn't it? A 2-1 loss.
Yeah.
Despite coming back to a draw, we conceded 2 very similar goals. A ball got to the byline, pulled it back, and someone was there to put it into the equivalent of an empty net. It was a tough game, and it was sort of the start of what we've sort of come to realise is the team's seeming weakness to go up against back threes. For the most part, I think Swansea is the only time we've come up against a back three we've actually looked dominant to any degree. And it has been due to some great defensive performances, just great organisation from the opposition, and Solanke has been unable to really get themselves into the game. So, what I'm hoping for this time is, with a very close to fully fit squad, Billing will still be there, obviously, but now with the likes of Cantwell, with the likes of Dembele, with Ethan Laird coming off the bench, we've got something a bit different compared to the last game we played. And I'm hoping to see, some more variation in our play. Certainly Dembele, actually being able to dribble past his man, taking him on, and play up against a well-organised Preston team. And let's not forget, there's a different manager now that's looking after Preston compared to last time. This Ryan Lowe seemed a lot more progressive. Obviously had a fantastic time at Plymouth, and Preston have done very well to get a promising manager off of a good League One side. So I'll be interested to see the difference between how they played against us last time out and this time round. They are trying to become a more possession-based side, but there's still a strong core of very aggressive and very good, consistent Championship players, the likes of Daniel Johnson, the likes of Alex Brown, Reece Jacobson's their top scorer. Jordan Archer's a very promising striker that's on loan there at the moment. They've got some good players there, and it's still going to be a tough game.
That's right, Steve. And they did take our unbeaten record earlier on in the season. But I do look at this game as another nervy Blackpool type fixture. Are you the same?
Yeah, very much so, mate. Like John said, we haven't got a great record against them recently, and they did bring our unbeaten run to an end. And I was listening to a podcast, a Preston podcast earlier, actually, just to do a little bit of research for today. But they it was interesting because they all said, "Oh yeah, we're scared of Bournemouth." You know, they talked about Bournemouth. What do you think of the goal? They all said, "Oh, don't like this one much." And then by the end of it, they were saying, "This, the Ryan Lowe, the new guy, he kind of doesn't change it to come up against the better teams. He kind of sticks to his principles." And they've actually done quite well. I think they got a draw against Fulham, didn't they, John? Not too long ago.
They beat West Brom not long ago.
Beat West Brom. So they can get some good results against the top teams. That's what they're saying. Even though our positions would suggest we should be scared, they should be scared of us. I don't think they, the way Ryan Lowe sets up and approaches it, I don't think they are, and they've actually reaped the rewards from that. By the end of it, they all went for a blooming 1-0 Preston win. But yeah. I think they would be happy with a draw, and equally, I would be happy for a draw. It's one of those places where I think we just, get the job done, get out of there, and just make sure we don't really lose. Because I think I don't know if Scott Parker's still got aspirations of trying to win the title, and if he has got any aspirations of doing that, then you're going to have to win these sorts of games and go on a bit of a run, like Jonathan Woodgate did last season. I know that was for the playoffs, but this would be for maybe possibly automatic.
I think it is more of a bonus at this stage. I think just getting that promotion would be the key point here. But Ross, it's been a bit of an Achilles heel for us this season, where we've come up against teams, and it all seems weird to say it, that we're expected to beat. They really did much sort of consolidate us in that game earlier on in the season. They got us to 0-0 at half-time, just like Hull City did. And then they almost felt like they then had a chance to maybe take something from the game. And we've really struggled to beat teams lower down in the table, not necessarily that Preston are, in the relegation zone or anything like that. But then you come to the old saying of, we can't deal with a low block. And our fans almost feel more confident if we were playing Fulham.
Yeah, because Fulham will come out and try to beat you, try to score, try to attack, and give as good as they get in the game. And I think it comes back to a little bit of the point I was making earlier about these places you'll go to away from home, and in the past you might set your stall out to try and get a point yourselves. Now all of a sudden there's an expectation to go and beat them. And I think when you talk about the team or the club struggling against teams that play a back three, a lot of the time you're probably finding it's actually a back five and not a back three that you're playing against. I know Ryan Lowe well, and I came up against his Plymouth team on numerous occasions. They won League Two in my first season as manager at Orient, and they were the best team. Sorry, they went up from League Two. They were the best team for me by a mile in possession. So I know how aggressive he likes his team to be, but out of possession again tomorrow, there will be moments in the game and times in the game, and I'm sure the early stages where they'll not want to be out the game before it's got going. So they'll be there and try to frustrate and a little bit like you said last time. And then as the game wears on, try to pick and choose their moments when they can create opportunities to try and nick the games themselves. So I think you're going to find that because you're second in the league, because you're at the top end of the division and trying to win it, trying to get promoted. Teams are going to come, and even in their home games, sometimes it feels a little bit unfair. If you're the real dominant team, that you go in there and you're thinking, here we go again, we've got to try and break this mob down. But it is all part and parcel of being a big club or a big team in the division that's trying to get out of it at the top end rather than falling out of it at the bottom end. So, but like I say, I think there will be a little bit more adventure in the way that Ryan's teams play. He will try to wrestle for more possession and just completely conceding it against Bournemouth tomorrow. So hopefully that will expose a few gaps and be able to create opportunities to create more chances earlier in the game.
So Scott Parker did have his press conference ahead of this game. Lots of this stuff discussed in this game. And I'm going to stay with you, Ross, and come to you, as the first thing that was sort of discussed was the quartet of youth players that have broken into the first team, sort of for some and definitely for others, was that contracts were extended. Zeno Rossi, also Christian Sadie, and then there was the extension, 1-year extension to Jordan Zamora and Jaden Anthony. And Ross, this has got to be seen as a very, very good thing for the Cherries. However, are Jordan Zamora and Jaden Anthony now getting into potential danger zones for Bournemouth, that there's going to be talking behind the scenes, agents probably involved now, and if Bournemouth don't go up, or even if they do go up, they're only on 1-year extensions. And how is that going to be difficult for Bournemouth to tie them down to an even longer contract, especially if we want to try and rebuild in the Premier League?
I don't think it becomes by any way, shape or form difficult if you do get promoted. I think the negotiations, I think the potential to keep them at the club becomes a hell of a lot easier when and if and hopefully you become a Premier League club than if the worst happens and you don't get promoted this season. So I think certainly that wouldn't be something that I would be outright panicking about at the moment. I would think that getting that promotion would definitely give you opportunity to revisit it. So they might only just be negotiating new deals or have negotiated new deals, but once you go up again and they're valued and the club believe that they're going to be part of the long-term future or really help to keep them in the Premier League once and hopefully they get in there, I think those negotiations become a hell of a lot easier. As I say, the polar opposite end of it will be that, you know, if the worst doesn't happen and they don't go up, then negotiation does become hard, and then the sharks start to circle, the bigger clubs start to have an impact, and then that's when the agents will start to go to work and players can become unsettled.
But it gives us a really good chance to keep these players long term. Also, Scott Parker, Steve talked about players back on the field. I do love some of his terminology. Some are on modified training, some are not, some are just on the turf. Don't know what that means. Junior Stanislas is still a little way away. Robbie Brady as well. But we know Smudge is back in the frame. Ryan Christie's back on the field as well. And it's a good sign with a busy period coming soon.
Yeah, we're certainly going to need the squad depth with the games coming as thick as fast as they will be. Yeah, Smudge it's good to have Smudge back, and it was like we said, as soon as he's back fit, he's back in the side. And I didn't think he had his best game against Stoke, but it's quite evident to see that Scott wants him as his first choice right back. So I think the quicker he gets him back up to full speed, back up to match fitness, full match fitness, the better. So I think that's why he brought him in straight away. And I think we'll see him again on the week tomorrow. Ryan Christie is an interesting one. I wonder if he's quite there just yet or whether he'd be on the subs bench. But, you know, he's making good strides apparently. So that's all good news. Yeah, I mean, obviously Nat Phillips will be back because it wasn't an injury as such, was it? It was just an illness. So you'd think he'd come straight back in, which is a bit, yeah, it's a bit of a bummer to Mepham because I thought he had an okay game actually. I didn't think he was the worst of our essential pairing actually for a change. But, yeah, so he'll come back in, and then it's just about whether Jayden Anthony comes back in as well, or Dembele keeps his position.
Got some other supporters joining us on this stream. AFC Bournemouth Germany. We've also got Badger and the Bournemouth fan from America as well. And just as Steve touched on there, John, Lewis Cook, this is a return to a stadium where he suffered a severe injury, a second severe injury in his career. Now, I have said now for a while that this is not the Lewis Cook that we bought from Leeds. We expected a player that was going to be more advanced, in my opinion. And I do feel, John, that when he's in that advanced role that Scott Parker's tried to play him in, he does look like he's scared of getting injured. But when he's played in that deeper role that he's admitted he actually wants to play in, it gives him an opportunity to maybe have more space and just start the play than get himself in a position where he's moving across the halfway line and in a potential scenario where he could get clattered.
Yeah, and there's certainly an element of that in terms of he's not the player that we thought we were buying from Leeds originally. I mean, if you back in 2016 when we originally brought him, you look up compilations of his action at Leeds and you'd see him as like, you know, a Jack Wilshere reborn, sort of taking the ball, running 20 yards with it, playing a lovely through ball, or taking the occasional screamer from outside the box. And it's just not his game anymore. And you're right, he just doesn't look like he wants to travel up the pitch very much. He's barely been in the opposition penalty area, and even when he gets there, he doesn't take a good touch to set up the shot. So whereas in his number 6 position, which I feel as though if he was fit at the start of the season, that's where we would have seen him for West Brom and so on, and we wouldn't have seen any of Gavin Kilkenny, who is so similar to Lewis Cook in that role, is he's so press resistant. He's so good at keeping hold of the ball when he's got it and someone's trying to tackle him. But not only that, he doesn't have any issues with playing quick passes. He can slow the tempo down if he wants to, but he can also take it past a man. He's got so much ability on the ball, from that deeper position, that he can completely control the tempo of a game. And that's what I think Kilkenny needs to build into his game. He also needs to, be a bit stronger as well to shield oppositions, but, he'll get there. Ben Pearson, who can play that role, is just very simple on the ball, but very good at breaking up play. He's the ball winner. He's the defensive sounded one. Of course, Ben Pearson would be playing against his former side if he was to play in this game coming up. And then Jefferson Lerma, who's kind of a hybrid of the two. So I'm a huge fan of Lewis Cook in that position. When you pay attention to the way he just sort of glides around the pitch on the ball, just continually takes up positions to receive the ball, always make it easy for his defenders to progress. I just really like him in that spot, and it's where we're probably strongest in terms of we've got 4 players that could legitimately take the first team spot in that position. So it's a hell of a lot of competition there, and we're starting to see the best out of him after another very severe injury. And fingers crossed, he doesn't it doesn't turn into a cursed ground for him on Saturday.
Do you think he keeps the spot, John, when Lerma's back?
That is a tough one, because Lerma just seems to be the first name on the team sheet for every manager that's ever had him at Bournemouth. He was down for Eddie, it was JT, it was Woodgate, and now it's Scott Parker. Every single one of them wants him in the team. But unlike Cook, he could play in one of those hybrid 8 roles. So you could play him somewhere else, but that would mean you'd need to drop Cantwell or Billing. We've got so much strength in midfield. It is difficult, but the most likely thing I would see is Cook being dropped for Lerma.
Yeah.
Well, we're in a generous position tonight where we could ask someone who's been a manager in the football game, do you have favourites, Ross, when you're a manager? Players that, if they're fit, regardless of another player in his position who's been in form when they've been out, that's my favourite. I play him every week.
Absolutely. You do. And you have, because I think ultimately, like looking at it from with my fans hat on at the moment, we all have our favourite players, but not necessarily about the one that's going to unlock a defence or create you something fantastic that we all want to watch necessarily. Sometimes it's the ones you can rely on. Sometimes it's the ones that drive other people. So there'll be common factors as to why they're the people that you rely on, but absolutely you have the people that that right now actually he's back fit, he's ready to go in. But I think just listening to you guys there, reeling off the different names that can play in those positions, as you're reeling them off, you're thinking to yourself, well, you wouldn't actually mind most of those playing. I think Lerma and Cook playing in front of Kilkenny, although he's a player that I really, really like, there's probably a bit more of a preference for those over someone like that at the moment. But it's a number of riches, isn't it, that the club have got in order to be able to call upon in particular positions. So outright, you definitely do have your go-to players, and you want them in the team because you can rely on them. I think the other thing that you mentioned there about Cook that was really important is that because he is a player that has performed at the top end of the pitch in the earlier years in his career, despite his injuries, having him in the team in that deep position could be really valuable when you play against teams that you're having to break down. So when you talk about the players that are a little bit more simplistic in their passing against a team that are getting men and numbers behind the ball, you do need players who are going to be able to suck people out or find a clever little pass. So his attributes and qualities that he would have had higher up the pitch are going to be able to come into play, hopefully, in order to try to break some of those defences down that we've already discussed.
Interesting stuff. And Stephen says, has Lerma got another 3 matches to miss? Heather says, 2, I think it is 2. I think Lerma is available for Derby. And we go into that part of the show, John, don't we? It's time for something, isn't it?
It's time for our prediction of the lineup, isn't it?
Let's get into our inner Scott Parker, shall we? Okay, here we go. We're going to try and predict what Scott Parker's going to do tomorrow. I've got 9 players on that pitch. I've got Mark Travers in goal. I've got Nat Phillips to come back from illness to play alongside captain Lloyd Kelly-Jordan. Some more at left back. I'm going to jump the holding midfielder role for the moment. Billing and Todd Cantwell in those 2 positions ahead. Jamal Lowe, I've put in to start off the left because Jaden Anthony, maybe it comes too soon. Dembele, he is looking to get more games under the belt while Ryan Christie is getting back to fitness, and Dom Solanke. So I'm going to come to you, Steve, because there's a key position now where Adam Smith was told he was fit, straight in the team. Jack Stacey out, Laird come off the bench last week. So there's a good option for Scott Parker. Who does he go for tomorrow at right back?
Well, like we've just, or sort of Ross just says, there's a joy of riches in our midfield. There's also a joy of riches in our right back position. And to be honest, I'd be happy with any of them. But I think like I've just previously said, I think Scott wants to get Smith back up to full match fitness as quickly as possible after his long layoff. So I'm going to go with Smith in that position. I just think that's what Parker does. He always turns to him.
I can see why we went for Smith last week. I feel a little bit sorry for Jack Stacey, but we all love Adam Smith and we know we can trust him. And a big position I think that will be in contenders for this place, John, will be that defensive midfielder role, which Lewis Cook stepped up against Blackpool, and you'd expect probably Lewis Cook to play tomorrow. However, is this a game for someone like Ben Pearson against his old club? And his last time that he started a game was away at Barnsley, where he was arguably man of the match. And I think whoever starts in that position tomorrow, John, doesn't play against Peterborough on Tuesday.
Yeah, it's a good shout, and I certainly think that there is, an element that when you're going up against the side and you have a player in the likes of Ben Pearson that was going up against the former team with, although a different manager, there's a lot of players that he played with in that side. I'm sure there's some level of thinking from a manager to sort of say he's played with these guys every single day in training for a good 5 years. There are things that he knows about those players and things that they know about him that he may be able to take advantage of. So that might come into his thinking. Interesting, actually, there was an article in the Bournemouth, I think it was the Bournemouth Echo, where there was an interview with Alex Brown, Preston's captain, and asked about Ben Pearson. And saying how Ben Pearson maybe he's being a bit different at Bournemouth. He might be a little bit more in his shell, maybe not coming out quite as much and doing the kind of dirty work that he used to do for Preston every single game, because that's what was asked of him and that's the kind of team that he was playing in. Whereas nowadays he's playing in a much more, I suppose I could say, progressive team, certainly one that wants to get the ball down and play with it. And he recycles the ball very calmly and simply, but he's the ball winner of a team. He's not going to play any kind of very few aggressive attacking passes that he actually plays. So in a team against a team like Preston that's got that strength in midfield with the likes of Alex Brown, Benjamin Whiteman, and Daniel Johnson, who's been a thorn in our side before, I could certainly see him picking Ben Pearson. I'd personally go with Lewis Cook, but I think I could see Parker's thinking to actually put Ben Pearson in there, who's deserving of another start by this point, with a busy period coming up.
Okay, let's throw it into the chat, shall we? Let's throw it into the chat. Lewis Cook or Ben Pearson in that CDM role for tomorrow. Whilst you put your answer in the chat back on the screen there, Ross, because I want to ask you about a certain player that's currently getting minutes. He signed from Peterborough. That's Dembele. He scored at Blackpool. And I watched him quite delicately last week, actually. I was interested to see what type of player he is. Now, he looks like a player that lives on the edge. He looks like a player that he can excite fans, get fans' bums off seats. But what I did notice, Ross, was that he didn't quite know. I was watching him thinking, I'm not sure he quite knows what he's going to do in the moment. But I also found that he was a little bit sloppy in possession at times. I don't know if you've noticed that in the times that you've seen him in League Two and potentially played for Grimsby, or when you've seen him for Peterborough. But I think he's going to give us some really good moments. I think he's going to score goals, but I think we're going to have to take the other side of the game that might frustrate us.
Yeah, I do. I think to answer your question, early on in his career, he was obviously a lot younger, but raw talent, and it was, where is this raw talent going to quite take him? Where's he going to end up? And how strong is that raw talent that's going to be able to take him to the levels that you think it might be capable of? He's obviously channeled that a little bit, but I found that watching him a lot more at Peterborough, he was a lot more of a free spirit. and he was allowed to go a lot more. He was allowed to go where he wanted to. And I would imagine that without seeing him play for Bournemouth yet, there's a lot more structure to the way that Bournemouth play, and you would have a lot more accountability for players within the system that Scott Parker asked them to play in the way that they work. So I think that's going to be something that he's certainly going to have to get used to, because he was also pretty much allowed to go where he liked and create and come up with what he wanted or what he needed to do at a particular time for Peterborough. I think the other side of that as well, which is going to be really important, is he's going to have to improve on that if he wants to stay in the team in terms of his retention of the ball. So he'll be in there to be a match winner, to take people on, to create chances and hopefully add goals for himself and to the team the longer he spends in it. But with the way in which that they manage the ball, with the way in which that they keep possession of the ball, he's going to have to become a lot more reliable, with what you're saying like that in terms of the qualities of his passing and get to grips with that discipline. I think when we're talking earlier about the impact that Lowe has had on a game, I think it's really important that Dembele gets a bit of a run in the team, though, because I think you can almost become or get a tag of being an impact player or coming off the bench and having more impact than when you start games, because of the fact that you're in the team, out the team, in the team, out the team. And I think that does certainly happen to wingers quite a lot. So I think it is really important that he is given a run in the game in order to try to make his impact now and give himself the credibility and learn within the system that he's playing in now, because there will be a lot more asked of him than perhaps he was asked to do when he was playing for Peterborough.
Okay, the answers are coming through in the chat. I'm going to show them on the screen, but just coming over to you, Steve, just quickly on Dembele again. Am I fair in what I'm saying? It's very early days, almost Danjuma-like, but maybe will give a lot more effort and do more dog work out of possession.
Yeah, I mean, you saw when he there's that little snippet, isn't there, that's been good, doing the rounds of him doing his bit of breakdancing, and he's on the backside and he can't give up the ball, and he's scrapping for it on the floor, and he ends up getting it and coming away with it. I mean, that sort of stuff the crowd love, and I'm sure Scott Parker does. Certainly something that Danjuma never used to do. But the frustration for me, I think, will be if he's been brought in, well, what seemingly seems like to be that sort of player that excites, makes something happen, can be a match winner. But I also think from what I've seen of him early doors, he looks like on occasions he can hold onto the ball too long. He try and do it all himself instead of looking for that little through ball with players running beyond him. And I noticed in the Stoke game he did it a few times, and what would really annoy me is if he was brought in for that and then Scott gets a little bit, this isn't working, and then takes him out of the team. That would sort of frustrate me a little bit if that was to happen, because it's almost like you don't want to coach that out of him. That's what he's been brought in for. You want him to go on and attack teams, not sort of inhibit himself a bit. So yeah, I hope like Ross said, I hope he gets a good run, because he does excite me, and I think it gets a crowd on his side, like we were saying earlier. When things aren't going our way, he's the sort of player that will get the crowd up and bouncing.
Well, it's done, guys. We've done the predicted 11. It's obvious in the chat. It's on the screen now. Lewis Cook takes that final position, and that's what we predicted for this game. If you weren't able to join us live, no problem. Let us know your thoughts in the comments. Agree or disagree. But that is the team for tomorrow that we want to take on Preston. Hopefully get the 3 points. That's our predicted 11. You know what's coming soon? Those score predictions. Now, I know you told me a lot, Ross, that you love the Bournemouth Beach. You've also got a lot of fans down here for your time at the Cherries. Your biggest fan, one of your biggest fans, is Jeff. I know you know Jeff well. He's following you tonight. He's put his score prediction in there. It's gone a little bit early, but want to say anything to Jeff?
Hello, Jeff. It's good to see his name rather than just on Instagram.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And we've got those score predictions coming very, very, very soon, though. Let's go down memory lane, though, John. Or more importantly, even Steve might know more about this. But let's go back to the 29th of October, shall we? When we played Preston away, it was a 3-1 win. Do you remember much about this, John? There were some goals for Wes Thomas, Scott Malone and Mark Pugh on the day.
Yeah, that's going too far back in my memory. Back that would have been at a time when 2011. God, yeah, I'm still in. I'm still at university, so I would have been in Exeter. I wouldn't have been able to catch that game, but I mean, we were still obviously a good result and some great names in there as well. In terms of, you can see Harry Arter there. God, we have Scott Malone. Wes Thomas is a blast from the past as well, with Mark Pugh adding to a third. So, yeah,
Stephen Gregory as well.
Jeez. Recall that game at all, Steve? Does that ring a bell? You're good for,
no,
you're normally good for the history.
I was going through my poor stage then, so I wasn't doing a lot of away days. I was probably at the home games only at that point, but I've still got the shirt from that season, so I was definitely there at some point. Right. It's just not that game.
Okay, it's your time to put your score predictions in the chat. We'll show them on the screen. We're going to go around the room of our guests and get their score predictions very, very soon. But I have a game stat, don't I, John? I always try to feed this in. So here is your match stat for this game. Preston, how many games has it been since they've scored in the first half, John? Just a number.
Oh, well, if you're saying that, then it obviously must be a little bit of a while. How many games?
So the last time they scored in the first half of a championship fixture, how many games ago? All have a think.
I'll guess 10. I'll guess 10. 10 games.
Steve, it's normally a stab in the dark from you as well, but
I think it was minute. I don't really care. So, I don't know. Sorry, how many games did you say? Oh, Christ.
So the last time that Preston scored in the first half of a championship football match, how many games ago?
7.
Ross, any idea at all?
8.
As per usual, in any quizzes we do on Cherries Red Army,
none of us get
the
it
guest
right.
That's coming on always shows up the contributors, and it was 8 games. So, Steve, score first in the first half, and we go on from there, don't we?
Yeah, because we've been doing that a lot lately, haven't we?
Yeah, absolutely. Right, let's get those score predictions in the chat, shall we? We're going for a clean sheet from Jeff and a 3-0 win to the Cherries. Stephen's going for a 2-2 draw. Chris, he's going for a 2-1. Cameron also keeping a clean sheet, 1-0. And Nervy 1-0. That could be a double from Dom, from Mark Singleton, 2-1 to the Cherries. Gene is a 2-0 to the Cherries. Liam's going for 3-0, 2 for Billing, and 1 for someone else. Aaron's going for a 1-1 draw. Sammy is going for the famous Heart says 3-1, Head says 1-1. Mark Cole's going for a 2-1. Owen, it's his birthday on Sunday, 15 years old. Where has that gone, Ross?
No
Absolutely
way.
Madness.
Not a chance.
3-0, Owen. JK up the Cherries. He's also gone Heart says 3-0, Head says 0-0. Where's his score predictions for Heart and Head? What's also Heather's gone for 2-1 or a 1-0. Right, I'm going to come to you first, Ross. How are you feeling about this fixture for Bournemouth? I think I'll take a draw, but yeah, what are you thinking?
No, I'm going 2-0 win. Goal in each half. I think it'll be like you said there. I think it'll be tough to break them down, but I think we can get a goal before half time, and then I think we'll score late. So it will be a little bit edgy in the second half, but I think I'm going for a 2-0 win.
Steve, I know you'll be confident until 3:05, and then you might be messaging me with a little bit of frustration. But do we win tomorrow?
Do you know what? After listening to the podcast I listened to earlier, and actually Ross has almost just carbon copied what I was about to say then. I think it will be a 2-0. I think the style Ryan Lowe plays now, by all accounts, it might play into our hands a bit. So I think we could get our noses in front, and if they're trying to get back into the game by playing their new style of football, new brand of football, I think we could nick another one. So I'm going to copy Ross and go 2-0 as well. But I'd be happy to get out there with a draw.
Absolutely, I'd take a draw as well. I'll go for a 1-1 as well. I mean, I'll take all three. It might be a late show again because we are the comeback kings, aren't we, of late? John, I might be wrong in saying this, but one thing that slightly worries me is potentially your away form on the road. Am I right in thinking, or am I way out? Is that very much the start of the season?
I remember him at Middlesbrough.
Well, yeah. So I think my form has dropped off. But well, no. I mean, what was it? First one was it Hull? Was the first guy I went to. I went to Hull, which was the most boring 0-0 draw you'll ever go and see. Went to Derby, which had its ups and downs, but we lost. I went to Middlesbrough, which we lost 1-0. What was the first game I went to?
Forest.
Yes, Forest. So it did start well, even if that wasn't the greatest game. So we won the first one I went to. And it was a draw, 2 losses. In fact, it was so bad, it went wrong when I tried to order, Stoke tickets. I messed up the order on that one and didn't end up going. And then I can't remember, there was another game recently where I ended up not going either. I think I'm finally pulling myself back into a stadium and fingers crossed it doesn't go so bad.
He's good at stats, but can't get to a game.
I'm going to stick. Yeah, exactly. Well, I can't get to home ones, that's for certain. I am also going with a 1-1 draw. I think I'm not a superstitious person, but I do abide by the bogey team tag. I do think that there are sometimes just games you just can't quite put it together in. And I think it is going to be a little bit different. Like Steve said, Ryan Lowe's style, I think he is more progressive. He gets his team on the front foot a bit more. But at the same time, they're clearly still difficult to beat because they've drawn 7 out of the last 12. So I'm gonna be confident we can leave with a draw, half decent performance, and get back home where we hopefully turn it on against Peterborough.
I think they've only won 1 game at home since December or something like that. It's ridiculous.
Not 1 since December the 11th, and they've drawn 5 out of their last 6 at home, which John might have mentioned. So an awful lot of draws. And I do agree with a lot of what's being said, but this has been fun. We've prepared right, as we do on a match preview before the weekend. It's been fun to have all you guys as guests this evening. We've also had the chat. Make sure that you subscribe to Cherries Red Army because we want to continue to grow as well as the season gets into a very, very busy stage. Also hit the like button. Not sure what we're at. You normally let me know in the chat. Where are we at? If not, if you haven't hit that like button, please do hit it. And I just want to thank our supporters of the channel. Thank you to Mike, Mark, Rich, Richard, Sammy, Steve, Paul, Neil, and Aaron, who's also become a channel supporter member today. Also want to thank Mark Davis, and I also want to thank John and Jean this week for their donations to the channel. It is very much appreciated. You can donate or you can become a channel supporter member at buymeacoffee.com/Cherries Red Army. Enables to do these live match previews and all the other content. But let's just wrap up the show, guys. It's been great to have you on again, Ross. We'll try and get you on again. We really do enjoy it. We hope you've enjoyed this evening. Now, we also should have asked you at the start of the show that you have been keeping yourself busy. I've seen a lot on your Instagram. Follow Ross on Instagram because you'll see some interesting stuff. I think you've been going to some coaching stuff with some really big ex-managers. I've seen you podcasting and also lately doing some commentary. So just tell us a little bit about what you've done recently and maybe what's coming for you in the future.
The commentary's been the most fascinating, to be honest, because it's something I've never done before, and I was really keen to do it, but found it very difficult to break in to Radio London because I think in truth there's bigger names than me that were a little bit more of an appeal to the people listening. So I've been really fortunate that I've co-commentated on about 4 games for Swindon this year for Radio Wiltshire, and it's been really enjoyable. Completely different way of watching football because you don't watch it like a fan or like a coach or a manager. You're not trying to analyse it to death, but you're talking about the action and trying to keep your finger on the pulse with exactly what's happening because as you're talking, you forget that the people sitting at the end listening to you can't actually see what's going on. So it's been really really good in terms of trying to keep people entertained and alongside that some coaching work for the LMA, and then part of being part of the LMA is that that they're very, very good in terms of looking after you in terms of your CPD and getting around to see a lot of other people work. So yeah, exciting. Not quite as exciting as being back in work and having the stresses, but there's some real plus sides of not having that every Saturday anyway. So
the game needs you, Ross, and you're going to give me a call the next time you're down for Bournemouth Beach, yeah?
I thought you was going to say, give me a call next time I get a job, Kirk.
Well, I can organise a kit for you. I think I have said that before. If you need a kit, man, I'm here if you need me. So,
top man.
But definitely give me a call next time you're in Bournemouth, and we'll catch up with the family.
Definitely. Appreciate you having me on.
Steve, I know you've got to go away and make some sandwiches for tomorrow. You're going to get an early night. Make sure you have a safe trip. Excited?
Yeah, mate. Yeah, I'm buzzing for it. It's going to be. I think we're taking a couple of cars up, so there'll be some hilarities and joviality on the way up. I'm sure. Maybe a couple of quick drinks, and then we'll be off to the stadium for a Cherries win. Let's hope.
Definitely. And John, as always, great company, and looking forward to potentially you providing me some match reaction afterwards in landscape, please. And also Steve, hopefully you can drop me something so we can get something on the channel for the weekend.
Yeah, no problem. I'm not the one that needs reminding. Don't worry about that.
Like this, yeah?
Exactly. Just like that is exactly how you're always told not to do it. So,
so I'll do that.
Exactly. But yeah, I'm sure I'll record something for you, and I'm going to have a much easier go of it than Steve tomorrow morning. I've got a 1.5 hour train journey from my neck of the woods, and then a half an hour walk, and I'll be at the stadium. So there are disadvantages to not getting to home games, but it makes going to away games a lot easier.
Fantastic. Really enjoyed it. Make sure you hit those like buttons. Sammy's reminding you in the chat, and support the channel. But it's been a great night for this preview. Let's hope the Cherries can continue their form in the Championship. We're going for 5 against a team that's a tough nut to crack. But on this match preview, we will see you soon. From me, John, Steve and Ross. Look after yourselves. Enjoy the weekend. Up the Cherries.